You're listening to Lead Through Strengths, where you'll learn to apply your greatest strengths at work. I'm your host, Lisa Cummings, and I gotta tell you, it's tough to find something at work that is more energizing than using your strengths every day. Now, today's Q&A episode, I got a question that kind of challenges that idea. It's from a person who asked, as a manager, what to do when someone on the team refuses to take the assessment and participate in this process. So I'm saying, hey, what's more energizing than using your strengths every day? And this person is saying, I don't know what to do. How am I supposed to use that person's strengths? They won't even participate. Now, in digging a little bit deeper, this person specifically said they don't want to participate because they don't want to be put into a box. We've delivered training to over 20,000 participants. I think I can remember 3 people feeling like this, like saying, these assessments are stupid, or I don't want to be put into a box, or folding their arms at the back of the room, just not participating, showing up at the event, but not doing the process. So that is good news. Most people feel like, hey, you want to talk about how I'm awesome? Let's go for it. But once in a while, you get people who don't want to participate. So first things first, I think that these kinds of tools and most training is best done in an opt-in kind of way. If you're talking about personal and professional development, if somebody doesn't want to opt into their own personal development, if somebody doesn't want to opt into an event like this, trying to make them, I just haven't seen that go well. So I always invite them in to the session, even if they haven't done the assessment. I always make it a point that they can decide later on that they can take the assessment. I just tell them, hey, come on, try it in. Sit in the back. I won't bother you. See if you like the concepts. If you do, you can take the assessment later. There are some downsides to getting exposed to it before you take the assessment, but the reality is they weren't going to do it anyway. So let them come in. If they feel like it's a safe enough thing or it's an interesting enough thing, then most of the time they'll opt in later. And one of the reasons that they do is if you think about Clifton Strengths, the chances that someone else will have your exact top 5 in the same order as you, it's 1 in 33 million. And I don't think it's lost on people that you do feel really unique when you're doing an assessment like Clifton Strengths. The language is really easy. It's easy to understand and have conversations with each other on the first day that you're learning about it. But at the same time, when you know that it's 1 in 33 million that would have the same as you, 1 through 5 in the same order, that actually makes you feel like no boxes are being made at all. So I do think it helps that don't put me in a box situation, and sometimes just giving that proof point up front, because there are 34 talent themes that are potentially there. And then of those 34, we'll usually focus in on their top 5. That usually helps people not feel like you're going to put them in one of 4 categories and they're going to be in the corner of the room as the mean people or the weak people or the whatever people, because usually that's where it's coming from. They've had a bad experience at another company. Maybe they've done Myers-Briggs or DISC or one where they're put into 4 colors. And maybe it was facilitated in a way where it just did seem like there were only 4 options and a couple of them were demonized. So I get it that people have some bad experiences and then they think it's dumb and they don't want to participate. The other thing is to consider if you have a relationship with this person where you can ask some questions and just say, tell me more about your reluctance. Then sometimes you'll learn things like, well, I don't like taking assessments like this. I don't speak English as a first language. Well, great. You can do the assessment in many different languages. Maybe they say, the truth is I don't like doing assessments like this because I don't do well on tests. Well, if you actually have learning disabilities or some other situations, you can actually call the customer service line at Gallup and they can take it off of the timer. So I know that one can be touchy to talk about. You don't want to get into medical issues with people, but if somebody does not like taking tests because of processing speed, it is something that you could offer up to them. Okay, so we've got, I don't like it because I don't want to be put into a box. We covered that. And I like to do an opt-in culture and just invite them in to start participating in it anytime. The second thing we have different languages and different test scenarios that can be available for them, although it's not a test. And then the last thing is just let this person participate in their own words. So when we design our virtual training, we always take people out to tools that will say, if you have your top 5, focus in on XYZ. And when I say XYZ, I mean, we've made tools for each of the 34 talents where they can look up their specific information. But if somebody hasn't, we have this extensive list of an inventory of words where they can pick words that reflect how they get work done when they are at their best. So we actually make the virtual training available so that someone could participate without having an assessment in front of them. We started doing that because people ran into budget issues and they were like, hey, we want to run 800 people through this, but we don't have the money for assessments right now. And then we could have strengths-focused conversations regardless of whether they had an assessment. So it's also handy for someone who they didn't get to take the assessment because something came up. Maybe someone in the family died the couple of nights before they needed to have the assessment in, and now they're at the event and boom, they don't have anything to go on. Now you don't have to alienate them. So that's one solution as well. And one way that you could do this, if you go to leadthroughstrengths.com/challenge, you will see a page where we do this 12-week process. It's kind of like a team challenge for you to run a 12-week process of asking people about their strengths. 11 of the 12 of those questions don't even mention anything specific about their talent themes. They are literally just thinking of what puts people at their best. So you can get them participating in the process. Just have everyone on the team sign up for that and have the discussions as a team and learn what puts people at their best. You don't have to have the language. Clifton Strengths is like a total shortcut. I love it because it makes everything so much easier for having a common language and really understanding who shares some similar talents, and that helps them understand how to apply them more quickly. I mean, it's my favorite assessment by a mile, but you don't have to have it to have strengths conversations. So that's one thing I would do as a team is get enrolled in that challenge. It's free. And that way you can start to have those conversations without the assessment as a requirement. And then the last thing is, especially if you are a people manager, but this would go for anyone leading an effort like this. If someone doesn't want to participate in an event or in an assessment, well, just start looking for their strengths anyway. You know when they're at their best. And if you recognize it, you are now showing them that you see them when they're at their best. And you don't need an assessment to tell you where they really rock. And they don't need an assessment to figure out where they really rock. Sometimes it gives you a whole another way of looking at things. It gives you a whole new set of language that maybe you haven't considered. Usually I find that people are really good at describing what they know, kind of like the skills and experiences stuff they're really comfortable with. But when you talk about how you work, how you relate to people, how you make decisions, how you do critical thinking, those are the areas of these natural talents where people aren't as good at knowing their own. That's one reason I love the assessment, because it brings it out and they're like, oh yeah, I already know this, but I wouldn't have said it. So if you are on a strength spotting mission as a manager or a teammate who's trying to spot it in someone, but you don't have their list of talent themes around you, just watch for what they do well and think of things like that. How do they relate to other people well? How do they influence people? How do they do their best thinking? How do they do their best decision making? How do they get things done? How do they interact with others? Those are some really good categories. If you go through, they'll help you spot their strengths, regardless of having any assessment. And the good news is, the likelihood is, once the momentum gets going in the organization, they're going to join you because they see that it's being used for good and not for evil. So with that, I will see you for the next question. Bye for now.